Welcome back, traders. This is going to be my market outlook on index futures for the week of May 11th. Now, I am traveling right now, so I don't have my normal setup. The audio is going to sound way off, but hopefully you can still understand me. I'm going to go straight ahead and get to the outlook, starting with S&P. So I just want to take a quick look at the monthly chart. The one thing I want to note is this rejection block right here on this really long wick. So here on the weekly chart, my buy side target is going to be this high right here in this weekly SIBI. That's what I'm looking for price to go into. However, going into this week, we did create a fair value gap on the weekly chart. This also lines up with this old SIBI that I'm looking to be used as inversion. And you can see how this recent BISI is in the upper half of this weekly SIBI. So when price comes back down here, I'm looking for a retracement back into this weekly BISI and staying in the upper half of that weekly inversion fair value gap. Now looking at the daily, remember my buy side target is going to be above these highs here into that weekly SIBI, but there is also another short-term high right here that could be used to take partials. And of course, we have the previous week high as well. So these are going to be the three targets that I look for on the upside. Now going into this week, I think we could have a little bit of retracement early on, like Monday or Tuesday, and we could retrace back into this weekly BISI. And then later in the week on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm looking for a reversal to go for our targets, the previous week high, this old high, and of course, these relative equal highs in that weekly SIBI. Now, moving on to Nasdaq, this is the monthly chart. And again, I want to keep in mind of this monthly rejection block. And also, one other thing of note is that we are in a monthly SIBI, but I'm looking at this weekly SIBI within it, in the upper half of that monthly SIBI. I'm looking for price to actually go up there as a target. Now, that could be a premium target where we go into for premium prices, and then the market will start going lower. Or we could be trading above this weekly SIBI and then use it as inversion to go for these relative equal highs, of course, all-time highs. So don't really know what's going to happen until we see how price behaves around this weekly SIBI. So this is definitely a key level that you want to take note of once we go down to the weekly chart. Okay, so now on the weekly chart, I'm zoomed in here. You can see that this is going to be the swing high, the buy side target that I'm looking for, and I'm looking for price to go into this weekly SIBI. Now, remember, this week Pacific could be a very key level where we touch it and then we start going lower. If that is the case, you definitely want to take partials within the fair value gap, not just look for this swing high. We could create relative equal highs and then price go lower. On the other hand, we could be going above it, and then if we use it as inversion, that could be an indicator for future long setups. So definitely keep your eye on this weekly SIBI to see how price behaves around it. Now looking here on the weekly, last week we did have a pretty nice wick on the lower portion of the candle. So definitely want to keep track of 50% of this wick. This is incorrect. Okay, yeah, it should say lower wick. And then we could even retrace back into this weekly fair value gap before going up. So definitely want to keep track of both of these levels right here. If we look lower, there is this old volume balance that's pretty much halfway on this lower wick. It is something to keep track of, but I really think it's a higher chance for price to just come to either this 50% of this lower wick or back into this fair value gap before we start bouncing up for the buy side target. Okay, so now looking at the daily, same as ES, I think we could have some retracement, maybe Monday or Tuesday, and I'll look for price to come down into this weekly BISI. I don't see any other inefficiencies here on the daily chart. That's why I think the most recent one is going to be this swing low, and we go back into this weekly BISI. So this lower wick, now that could be a level that we could bounce off of, but without any other inefficiencies here on the daily chart, I actually think maybe we'll go into this weekly BISI before we start bouncing and reversing up for the buy side target. Of course, back there, we do have this old daily SIBI, and I'm marking out 50% of this as well because we could be coming back up and then using it as inversion. When it gets used as inversion, price should stay in the upper half. We shouldn't really go down into the lower half anymore. So that's why I'm keeping 50% of this daily SIBI in mind, because I want to see how price behaves in this range. And then if that happens, that kind of tells me that we are going to go for the buy side target. Remember, And remember, we might not actually take it out. We may just go to the weekly SIBI and create relative highs. So definitely keep some partials in mind as we go into this weekly SIBI. Okay, well, that's going to do it for me this time. I hope the audio wasn't that big of an issue for you, and I hope you were able to get some insight from this. If you did, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't done so. And until I see you next time, safe trading.